activity it breaks. Long time to start. Okay. So I'm in the virtual machine and I'm in SQL Server. And for the example, we'll do community assist. What do you think would make sense as some views? Think about reports. What kinds of reports do you think would make sense for community assist? Okay, yeah, so we might want to like a list of donors. What other things might we want? And just get 4 or 5, and then we'll make the views, and then maybe a store procedure. Think about, you know, if you're doing reporting on this, if you were like an administrator or an analyst. You could. So I'm going to say, I don't know how I want to put this, amount allocated to each grant type. We might also want to know just like the total donations, maybe broken by year.
Grant type.
Yeah, that's grant, not grat. Total donations by year and month. If I had more data, I might not break it by month. Total grants by year and month. And we might want, for both of these, I'm not going to do all of these, but you might want the count and then total allocated on these. One of the things you would probably do when you were first starting thinking about reports is set up these views for reports. I do know for the people that do the reports on SQL Server here in the school, they don't have any choice. They can only use the views that were pre-created for them. So somebody sat down in the district office and went about and created like 20 or 30 views from which they could base their reports. Which means they have to think about all the ways you might want to look at the data.
Just total allocated.
So
In terms.
yeah, there's a and then the actual allocated amount, which may not be the same. Ask for 500.
And count is the number of grants.
Count would just be the number of grants. So you just literally is the count thing. You might want some averages and things like this too. So this is for the grant types, and again, that might be by year and things. I'm just trying to think of what other kinds of, there's not a ton of numerical data in here. Numeric data makes the best reports, but not always. Might have, this is a, well, total grants, total donations, average request or allocation per, you know, grant type. Just trying to think of anything else. Anything else you could think of that might be useful to see?
Can you do total amount requested and total amount allocated? We could.
And maybe we would want to do that by month and year too. I'm just trying to get it so when you do a report, it depends. You can be as sophisticated as you want in these reports, but yes, versus total allocated.
You're talking money.
Yes, these are money. And you could do this per month. Also maybe by type, right? That's probably enough. Because mostly I just want to give you some samples, and these are samples that we'll use for reports. Part of why I want numeric stuff in here is that I want also to be able to show you how to do charts, right? So, because there's a lot of charting and graphing possibilities in here. There's other possibilities that we're not going to actually look at, but when we do reports, I'll talk about it a bit more. You can actually make the reports interactive with Office, interactive with spreadsheet, but we're not going to import all the Office tools. And it would involve a little, it's just more complicated, but it is something you can do. All right, are we ready to do some of these? Do you remember how, so I'm going to do a couple of views, and then I'm going to do at least one parameterized query, which is basically makes it a stored procedure. Are you up for this? You guys look not totally enthused. So if you remember to those of you that had it, create. Oh, first of all, let's make sure we're using the right database. Use Community Assist with the create view. And you can name it what. Let's call it like donor contact. How simple do we want to make this? There is an email in person. If we just want their email contact, we could just make an email list real quick. That's probably the easiest thing to do, and then we'll do more complicated ones later. But this is, create view, give it a name. You always start with an as, and then everything after that is just the SQL. So there's a couple of ways. So I'm going to do select, and then I'm going to do person last name. And I'm going to alias it as last name, person first name, and I'll alias it as first name. Person email. And if we're just doing that, that's all we need. I'll just call it email. All right. From person. Now, there's a couple ways we could do this last part because we want to get only the donors. What would be 2 ways to get only the donors? Anybody remember from last quarter? How would you do it? There's a way that you can do it with a join, and there's a way you can do it with a subquery. You could either join with donor, so it'll only return those people that are in the donor table. Or you can use a subquery where you say where person key in, select person key from donor. Either one of those will work. You have a preference? All right, let's do it this way then. Where person key in, select person key from donor. So it'll only do this if they're in donor. I actually don't know which is, and it's donation, not donor. Donation. I don't know if this is more efficient than the inner join or not. I don't know which one is more efficient, which could matter. So.
Let's write down the inner join.
So the inner join version of this. So I'm going to copy this part up. Would be inner join and enter is an optional word. Donation on, I didn't, person key equals donation.person key. Yeah, donation. Okay. That's exactly the same effect. Which one do you want to make? I'm not going to make them both because they're the same. Subquery. I will post all of this, of course. And the way you use that view then would be select, I'm just going to say star, from BW donor contact. And it gives me a list of all the people that have donated. So there's 44 rows. I think there's like 130 people in the thing, right? 132 or so. So 44 of them are donors. And this is just like a quick email list for them.
I have 41.
Yeah, it could be,
This time.
depending on what things are done in class and things. Any question on that one? So that's a real simple one. As I said, the other one will work too. We could call it donor contact B, and it would have exactly the same effect. Let's look. You know what? Go back up to one of these should be great. Here in text. Results are great. We'll rerun it. So what it's doing is there's still results in text there. There we go. What happens when you take results to text? These are all 255 characters, and it gives you that whole space. I don't know why, but it does. All right. So that's a basic view. Let's look at the amount allocated to each grant type. Or do we want to stick with donation and do total donations by year and month? Let's do that one. And then we'll go to the grants. As I said, part of the reason why we're doing this is to prepare views for reports. It's easier to make your reports on a view. It's not impossible to make them from the table. That means that you have to do all the aggregation and all the stuff in the report, right? If you have it pre-aggregated, it makes the reporting easier. There could be some arguments for doing it from the raw tables, I suppose, but I think it would take longer. Probably take longer for the report to process too. So I'm going to create a view, and I
had different results. When you did it one way, I had 41, and when I did the other, I had 48.
that is weird.
41.
People in the results.
No, when you did subquery.
Yeah, when I
Actually, that might be worth
yeah, I
exploring.
think it is. Well, I guess what was our first? Was it
So the
subquery?
first one I got was 44 rows, and I have 55 in the other.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Did you add like James Hoffman, Ed Messerly, and Lisa Sandoval to yours? Because those are the last three online.
Those are here. Did they donate? So why would it
That's so
not?
weird.
Why would it be different?
I don't think I ran Ed online.
Well, it would be interesting to run.
What are the differences and why? There should be the same.
Let's see. Jennifer,
Let's do a quick select star from donation. There's 51 rows. So the second one is correct in number. I am wondering,
So even the first two and the last one, just from quick check, are more.
I think I know what the difference is. I think that this is doing a distinct.
Mm,
Yeah, I don't want to run that. I just wanted to run the query. I'm pretty sure that's doing a distinct. Let me do, if I put, and I get 44 rows. Which actually might be a better for an email list. You don't need them listed every time they donate it.
no.
I really didn't realize this would do a distinct, but that's the effect. It's only returning one instance for the person key, right? It's not returning, well, and I think actually I know why too. This is pulling from person primarily, and it's just selecting which people in persons that key matches. It's not returning the number of times it matches. If it matches, it returns that person.
Which is the same by default.
Right, which is the same as if it were distinct. This is returning every matching record, right, if you don't use the distinct keyword. But actually, that's a good catch.
I need the third one with the word distinct.
Yeah, I might alter the view. Because usually for an email
Yeah, we
list,
went with it, yes.
yeah, so it will, now both of them should return 44.
Maybe I did.
They probably are. They wouldn't be right next to each other unless we ordered them.
Try it again.
You could order them and see.
Yeah.
So one of the things you can't do, what is one of the view? I just mentioned it. You can't order by in a view. You can order by in the select. So let me put an order by here in this view just to show you. So I'm going to order by person last name. And if I run this, it's going to fail because the order by clause is invalid in views. Inline functions, derived tables, subqueries, and common table expressions unless top and offset or for XML is also specified. So you can't do an order by in a view, but you can in the select on the view. Oh, that's because there's no person last name in there. It's just last name. You can't see the underlying table names, only the aliases. Okay. Questions on that? Views aren't hard. But they do involve.
Usually that's subquery.
Yeah.
Not.
Say again.
You
That
can
that
order
error
by
that I had.
Select. Is that what you said?
You can order by in the
In
select,
the select.
but you can't order by in the view itself.
But
So
you can call it by its alias.
I'm going to do select year, donation date, and we need to give it an alias. So I'm just going to do year. They don't allow unaliased function. You know, they don't allow columns that would come up, no column name. You have to give it a column name. So year, donation date. Month, donation date. And I'll just do that as month. And so the other thing I'm going to do is sum donation amount. Okay. From donation. Group by. We need to group by year, donation date, and month donation date. You guys remember group by? You have to group by everything that's not a part of the aggregate function. And the aggregate function is sum, because it's operating across multiple rows, where these are operating row by row. What is it not like?
It's not liking the functions. When I group by donation date, it seems to, just donation date, it seems to work fine.
Oh, it needs a comma. Okay.
Yeah, that's the problem. If you group by just the date, it won't actually work the way that you want. Did it?
Well, I have a bunch of, oh wait, they're all, okay, no, it's not. It's not what I want.
Then this should be a comma, not an and. And then mainly this has this because it needs to be a, these are things that want to be separated as batches. Oh, I didn't give a name for the sum. Told you it requires an alias for anything that would come up unnamed. So there's year. Notice we've only got 2 years and they're in the wrong order, but that's, you know, you can order by after the time. Gives the month, and then it gives the amounts per month. Now, if we want, we could do some formatting here. I actually think it might be better to format things in the report. But you could, I mean, if you wanted to put $signs on here, you could even get the name of the month if you really wanted to. But
Mine's not like.
so instead of month donation, I think there's a date or a month. There's a function that returns the name. I just forget what it is. I have to go look there. But we'll leave it to like this for now, unless you guys want to mess with it. Yes, no, maybe so.
Just hang on, just give us a second to catch up.
Sure. Sometimes I think it's harder to undo the formatting in the report than it is to format it in the report. Let's see if we can get the month. Instead of month donation date, I'll leave that for right now. I think it's I was just looking at these. There is a date name function, but I don't know what the -1 is there. Or would be, let's instead of doing. I wonder what would happen. I'm just going to do. I'm just going to do. It doesn't like that. Invalid column, donation date. Why? Interval, date, offset is 0. So let's do (0). And it still doesn't like it. 2 arguments. Why is that an invalid column name? I don't want to spend forever on this. Date name, month. It wants the.
Donation date is date time.
There's no donation date anywhere in that whole thing. It's not.
Oh, it's just a comma.
Ah,
Oh, I have to group by it also.
What's month name? Why is that?
That's actually month name seems to be a function.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be the alias, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in square brackets.
All right.
All right.
It needs to be grouped by, right?
Yeah, so I need to include it in the group by. So I need to group by this as well.
Let's check.
So actually, we have all that complicated stuff. We could just do month date. Get rid of this. Of month. Down. I think that's as much as I'm going to do with this. I'll alter the view to include it. As I said, you could format these as dollars. You'd have to cast them. Or actually, there's, and you might regret doing this, but I'll show you real quickly. You could do format $, £, comma, pound, .00. That should be in single quotes instead of double quotes, and then close the parentheses. and then it looks like dollars. Now what is it? Oh, because it
Is it because it's not closing date on 9/37?
that should be all right. It should work. Invalid object name, procedure, total donations by year, month.
Does total need brackets around it?
No. That should work.
Check your views, do you have it?
Yeah, maybe. I'm sure I created that, didn't I? Maybe I didn't.
I guess you did.
I guess I was just running the select part of it. It wasn't doing the view. So that makes it, as I said, this, you can do this kind of stuff to set it up, but you might want to leave the formatting to the reporting software. It makes a better report in SQL. One of the things that I've never, there's probably a way, but to get these to align, to go to the right align instead of left align. I'm sure there's some probable way to do that, but I don't know.
Did you do an order? Oh, mine's ordered. Yours is not.
I didn't order by, so if I do an order by down here,
Oh, yeah. I didn't do an order by that.
I did it in the query. Because you can't do it in the,
Mine ordered by.
yours ordered automatically.
By year.
I wonder why yours ordered by year and mine didn't. You could also
Because of
order
the group
by,
buy, isn't it?
what?
Isn't that kind of because of the group buy?
Well, kind of, although it doesn't necessarily. The fact that I group by year first, the order that they appear here is based on the select. I don't know, the group by mine looks the same as yours, year and month. So I don't know. All right, so there's one.
I have one more than
I might have added some stuff.
that. There's also ordered by. No, it's ordered by year first and month. No, that's not.
All right, so let's do a couple more, and then we'll look at the assignment, and then you guys can do. As I said, I want these because we're going to use these for the sample reports too. Let's look at some grants. So total grants by year and month would be very similar to this. The VW is optional. I use it as a naming convention. So if we want to just do the, do we want total grants? Let's do, there's two tables that have this. There's grant review where the actual allocations are, and there's grant requests where the requests are. So if you want to match, we'll do a match with the requests versus allocations. But for right now, I'm just going to do based on the grant review. Because in the grant review, we also have the grant review date, grant request status, and we're just looking at the grant, well, we don't need the status, we just need the, we could say where the status is. What are my, I'd have to look, but where they have it.
You need to have a treatment for skin condition.
What?
Did you like the grant request explanation?
Oh, yes, I did.
You need to have a treatment for skin conditions.
Yeah. Well, you get bored.
Empty cupboards.
So I'm going to do not select star. Select star, you usually don't want to do in a view. So I'm going to do year, grant review date, and we'll do this as year again, comma, month, grant review date, as month, sum, grant allocation, that should have parentheses, amount, yes, we do need a comma after month. They've been leaving out commas today. No comma after total. And then the group by the year. And then month. So it's almost exactly the same as the one above it. And I'm not going to, I don't think, run the, you know, when you're making these, it's a good idea to run just the select to make sure that that's what you're getting what you think. And then I will run this. Do you guys want the, instead of the month, do you want the date though, or the day, the verbal month?
Yeah.
So let's do date, name, month, review, grant review date. So, and we'll name it as, we'll still call it month. But that also means we have to change this down here to, and that needs a comma. Down here we have to change this to date name. Month, and then a comma here instead. Okay. So first I'll try the select. And then I will, interesting. My order is very different than that. But I'll create the view.
Yeah, mine order's over here.
And it should. But, okay, so we got that one. I'm going to do a couple of others just because they'll make more interest in the report. So we want the total allocated by grant type. We should actually, well, it shouldn't matter. So I'm going to do create view. VW.
Are you doing them not allocated to each grant type?
Yeah, by grant type. One of the things, if you're making these views, especially if you're making them for somebody else, it's a good idea to, even though these are really ridiculously long names, it's a good idea to name them something where they know what they're getting. But so when they look at them, they know which ones they might want for their reports. So I'm going to do as. I'm going to select, let's do grant type name. And we probably, so this is going to be just by the grant type name, and then you location, it's grant allocation amount. We weren't going to do it by year or anything, right? So that's almost all we need, right?
Do you need to use the grant type name, or do you?
Like if you run a function just by itself, it says alias and column name. You can't have that. So you have to,
Your
yeah.
name, okay.
No, you could change this name if you want. So this has 3 joins. So I'm going to do it from grant type, and I'll call that GT. On an inner join, service grant. Actually, it's grant request. Service grant is what it used to be named. I'll call that GR. On GT dot, why is it not giving me any? Oh yeah, I have a, thank you. On GT dot grant type key equals GR dot grant type key. Inner join grant review, which I can't do as GR. So let's do it as, that's a good one, GRW. So GR dot grant request key equals GRW dot grant request key. And then we want to group by grant.
2 entrants.
Yeah, you can group by.
Grant type.
You have to, actually.
Just say that earlier that you can open that.
No, you can't order by. But you have to group by or it'll fail. So let's do the select real quick before we run this.
You can grant type, let me see. Grant type.
So this gives the amount allocated per.
Oh, grant type.
Let's do a couple of other little things. So we'll have lots of reporting chances. I don't know if we'll use them all. And I want to give you, be done in just a minute here. What I'm going to do, what? Question? I'm going to copy this. I'm going to change it slightly. One of the things I'm going to change it is I'm going to and I'm just going to, instead of a sum, I'm just going to change this to count. I can count the grant allocation, but let's just do count. Let's do a generic. And I'm going to change this to count.
What's called?
It just means count everything. I don't know that I need. Let's look, I'm just doing the select right now. So what it does is it gives how many grants there are per type, as opposed to the amount, right? And you could do exactly the same thing if you wanted to do one for average. Right, just change this to average, but then you would want the allocation amount in there. I think I'm going to let that be though. I'm going to do one more and then we'll look at the assignment. And I will post these as I said. The one I want to do is the comparison between the allocation amount and the output. Do we want that as a absolute or do we want it by grant type?
Okay.
Okay, so let's do it by grant type. So we can kind of do this as a start, but let's do create view VW request versus allocation grant type. If you want, you can put by. I think you are limited to 255 characters in a name. All right, so we want to select grant type name again, because you don't want the number. I mean, in a report, you'd want the name. We want the sum grant request amount. So I'm going to do this as request amount. And then I want the sum allocation amount, grant allocation amount. Whatever the field name is, allocation amount. Okay. Oh, you mean the name? Yeah, allocated amount sounds good. And I could put separate. Okay, so and I'm also going to. Do we want to do a difference?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, so let's do sum grant request amount minus sum grant allocation amount, and we'll call it difference, which is a keyword. All right, from a couple of places. So from grant type, so it interjoins with grant request. On GT grant type key equals gr grant type key. Inner join grant review. On gr grant request key equals grw grant request key. There we go. So first, again, let's try this. Oh, I do need to group by grant name. Yeah. So you guys know what to do. Correcting me as I go. So some of them are no, a lot of them. Couple of them, weird amount is more than the requested amount, which I think is a mistake, but we will let that be.
Doing 4 of them, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice.
When I copied this, I actually copied the data from one version of this database to another. I think that some of the graph types got skewed a bit. So in the numbers, which is I think why there's a few of these where the amount allocated is greater than the amount requested, because I don't think that would generally happen. But this gives us the basic.
Incorrect syntax. Yeah, let's see that. Oh, that's
So I'll create that review or that one. And I think that's all I will do. Are there questions on these? As I said, I'll post them in just a minute. So let's look at the assignment again, and we'll see if you guys can, maybe I'll let you try it, and then we can go through a few of them. So the kinds of views that I have, a summary of how many buses are assigned to each bus barn. And if you go through the buses, one of the things is the bus barn. Each bus has a bus barn assigned, so you just want to count them, right? The count thing, and group by bus barn, and count the number of buses. A schedule for particular bus. Oh, I didn't show you stored procedure. Let's do a stored procedure real quickly, and then we'll go back. And as I said, do what you can here, and then I'll help you through them. We'll walk through them. I'm going to go back and do a quickie stored procedure. I'm going to do this same view that we did. It's just going to be a little bit, one tiny thing is going to be different. So I'm going to do create proc or procedure. I'm going to call it USP dot, and I'm going to actually just use the same name, but it's going to be procedure. USP instead of VW. And I'm going to give it a parameter. And it's going to be at grant type name. Should I do it as a name? In varchar 255. As, and exactly this same thing, except, now I think the where might want to go above that, yeah. I think where wants to go before group by. Where grant at grant type, where grant type name equals at grant type name. So this is a variable, right? A parameter that we're passing in. So the difference between this and a query, the view, is that one, we don't do it with a select, we do an exec. We give the name, USP, request versus allocation by grant type, and then we have to provide it a grant type. So I'm going to do food.
Oh, that's the correct technique.
And then what it'll do is it'll only return that one, right? And if I did childcare, then it returns childcare. So the only difference between it and a regular view is that you can pass in that parameter. And one reason I wanted to do this is that the reports have a mechanism for taking a parameter when you're calling up a report, if you're using a stored procedure. So I just wanted at least like one of these to have a parameter so I can show you how to do that in reporting. So what's your feeling? Do you think you guys can do those views? They're all on Metro Alt. As I said, why don't we give it some time and then see how well you can do, and then don't panic if it's a bit of a struggle, and I'll walk through the views either Thursday or sooner, depending. We've got about an hour left. Let's give it like an hour, and then Thursday we'll walk through them, and then we'll do an introduction to reporting. Probably do the actual report assignments next week, which is, I'm not sure how our schedule works out, but there aren't that many assignments, right? Each one takes a little while. And I will figure out a time for people to catch up to.
I think you and
That's right, I'm scheduled for
post
reports.
on your blog and edit the blog and you can complete on Thursday.
Yeah, so I'll go over them again on these on Thursday. And there might be some time left over Thursday if I go over what you guys haven't got on Thursday. As I said, just give it a shot. I'd like you to see what you can do. I know not everybody's had recent SQL, but most of you have. And you know, it's a good refresher. All right, so I'm going to post what we did today, and I'll do that right now. I'm also going to stop the video so it won't have too long of a dead tail. And it seems to have worked, so I will